Hi, so my name is Caitlin Davis, and I'm here today to do my reading response for the article that we read for class, which was the concept of a word case study. And to start off, I really thought it was interesting how they used the example of students who were in like 4th and 5th grade, so I'd never really even thought about this kind of concept applying to the 4th and 5th graders. And so I thought that was a really good introduction to the reading. So the first strategy that I came up with that I would like to use in my classroom is the strategy of repeated reading or predictable and leveled text. I thought this was a really great strategy because it also works on other cues within reading, and it's going to help students practice their memory and their picture, context, language clues, and repetition of language because they're going to be reading texts that they're more familiar with. It's not necessarily going to be a cold read every time, so they can work on reading those words, but then also applying all the other concepts of reading with it as well because they are familiar with the words. And then the text said predictable text contains language that is supported by pictures so that it's relatively easy to predict what the text says. I had never really paid attention to how important the pictures are, especially when you're working with a student who struggles with word concept or has a disability that affects reading. I always knew that they were important, but not quite as important as they really are. So I found this cute little meme just to illustrate the concept of predictability. And then the other way that I thought about it is like it's a pattern. So in the picture you see we have the blue, purple, blue, purple, blue, purple, and then it keeps going on from there. So that's the type of reading that we're going to want to use, is that predictable reading. On this next slide I have an example of a text that is a predictable text and the text features that go with that. So the first is that the pictures are large and focus on only the illustrating what the text is saying. So in our picture we see specifically a monster eating rocks, and that matches the text and is not overly distracting. The words are also in larger print typically. The sentences are going to follow the same pattern, and this is where those patterns come in. For this book we see some monsters eat rocks, some monsters eat socks. So it follows that same word pattern, and in the end, rocks and socks are the only different words. The other cool things about these are going to be that the words are always typically going to be located in the same spot on both pages, and then the pictures as well. So some ideas that I could use in my classroom to apply this would be having students illustrate the predictable textbooks. One of the things that I found was that it is something that teachers can create, which can make it even more personalized and individualized for the students. So this could be something that they illustrate and add those pictures to, which then adds even more meaning to it. And then the other is taking stories and writing them, and then specifically having them work on different features of the predictable text and add those into their stories during the editing process. So the second strategy that I liked was the language experience stories. And as I read through this section, it brought me back to where we had talked about in class about the interactive writing and how this one really applies to that. So for this strategy, the teacher's going to write down the students' ideas, and then they're going to read it all together. And the teacher will start off pointing at each word, but then the students will end up taking over, so it also incorporates that gradual release of responsibility. So some extension activities that I could do with this is the text gave a really great example of making a classroom book with all the stories that we write together as a class, and then they can also illustrate the stories that we write as well. So the third and final strategy that I found and really liked is the picture word matching. I thought it was really also, still following that picture and how important the pictures are. So you start with the common words, and then you start to associate the picture with the word, and then you can translate those into the predictable text. And the extension activities that I could use for that is making a family tree with photos of family members and their names. This was a recommendation that the text used to start associating names and having that as the first step. And then the other is to write stories using the features of the predictable text and then including the pictures. And you can also do things like matching games and anything that really connects that word with the picture. And that is all I have for you today. Thank you.